Hey, and welcome, Trekkers, to Trek Tonight. Getting close to the holiday season. You can see I've put up a little tree
Oh,
in Captain's quarters. I've got it up there, a little tiny tree. So, how you guys doing?
Walking and
doing
talking.
well, thank you.
Walking and talking, yeah. Oh boy, we've had kind of a fun week, just sort of getting the house put together for Christmas and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know if I ever ended up finishing telling you that story about my daughter, but they watched a musical version from Netflix, I guess, in their classroom today of Scrooge, and she was playing it for the little ones, my 7-year-old or 8-year-old, and she had to stop it at every point the teacher did to ask questions. So it was like went on forever. But then she started asking me questions. And I didn't know. Leo and I had to look it up. Like, what was wrong with Tiny Tim? I don't know. I guess the internet, the people have studied that, looking at it.
Tuberculosis and rickets.
Medical detectives have worked on that to figure out what's wrong with them.
Well, having missed that part of the conversation, if you found out, I'm in the dark still. So
okay, so it seems like tuberculosis was popular, rickets, hence the cane, and then a few other things, things having to do with malnutrition and all the coal being burned, causing problems with the air and what have you. And but malnutrition makes a lot of sense.
The first reaction was he was sickly, which seemed to be like a very Victorian sort of blanket statement about anybody who is unwell.
I love using that. I love using that because I always think of things like The Secret Garden, and I think when I'm really sick and I have a blanket all around me, and I'm like, I'm sickly. Anyway, we don't have a lot of time tonight because it is one of my relatives, Carol Pitcher. It is her birthday today. Happy birthday, Carol.
Happy birthday, Carol.
Yes, and
happy birthday.
I will not list her age on the air, but it is her birthday today. And we are going to be having dinner after this. My wife prepared, and another fellow in the family helped. Dean helped prepare chicken paprikash. That's what she wanted for dinner.
Oh,
so that's what we're having with rice and peas and all that kind of thing.
Isn't that the dish mentioned in When Harry Met Sally? Would like more pepper in my paprikash?
Could be. I haven't seen that in a long time. But it could easily be. Quick comment I wanted to make. We're going to do a program, whether it's going to be a segment or a separate broadcast on Twitch, but we're going to talk about Hallmark Star Trek ornaments. And Leo has some special ones that he got from Comic-Con. I have ones I've collected over the years, and so we're gonna talk about that. I'm showing you the boxes because some of them are already on the tree. But I'm a big fan of that, and I'm hoping this year I'm going to get all the new ones, because what used to be up back there was my tree topper with the ornaments that go with it, the storytelling ornaments, the Star Trek ones that for some reason tell the story of the Mirror Universe episode.
Merry Christmas.
I don't know why Hallmark picked that, but of course I love that episode, so I'm a big fan. But the last two came out this year, Dr. McCoy and Mr. Scott, and that will complete it. And then you turn the darn thing on and sit back for a half an hour and listen to the whole episode pretty much. It's not quite that long, but it does go on forever. I went into the Hallmark store and I turned it on because I wanted to hear what McCoy and Scotty had to say, and I'm sure it drove the people that work there nuts.
Oh, sure.
Playing, going.
Well, I do echo Leo's sentiments in that, Merry Christmas now. Hand over your agonizer.
Yes.
Exactly. Well, you know what? It does have red in it.
Oh,
so it's a little bit festive, I guess. If you didn't get that gift you wanted, Anyway, also too, we have one sad thing and then another exciting thing. Sad thing, of course, as most of you I'm sure know, is that Kirstie Alley passed away this week.
Yes.
After a battle with cancer, It's very sad. I loved her, and I first remember seeing her in Cheers. That's where I first remember seeing her.
Because I remember her first from Star Trek, and
As do I. Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
Even though she had a much obviously she only appeared in one film, although perhaps the most iconic of all the Star Trek films, Star Trek: The Wrath of Khan.
Right.
And she had a long run on Cheers. She was on that after Shelley Long left. I'm going to say at least 5 years. I mean, she won an Emmy for that.
Yep.
And she did a bunch of other shows and movies. But
yeah, she did. Was it Look Who's Talking? Didn't she with Tony Dan?
The whole trilogy.
John Travolta.
Yes. And, Veronica's Closet. But for me, she will always be Saavik.
Oh, so, yeah. She was my favorite Saavik. I was very disappointed that they didn't just pay her the money she wanted.
For a Saavik
fucking film, because I felt like she just nailed that part, and it was a sad day to hear that she had passed away. But it sounds to me like her fight with cancer was fast.
It was, if that's any consolation.
If that is any consolation, yes.
Yeah, only recently diagnosed, and then a lot like my stepfather, if I may add that, because he was about 6 weeks.
Wow.
From diagnosis to passing away. So,
well, I'd say it was probably the same for my wife's grandpa.
Is that right?
Yeah. For all we know, he probably had it for a lot longer than they knew, but he was diagnosed and it didn't last very long. But so on a cheerful note,
yes.
Star Trek Prodigy, the production design department, won a Child's Emmy for best production design.
He was a production designer.
Congratulations.
Alejandro Tahini. I'm sorry, I'm butchering this name, but I've never seen that.
My coffee.
Taini. So congratulations to Alejandro for that prestigious win.
Yeah,
it's nice to see a genre, even if it's an animated show. I always feel like genre pieces are not as well recognized in the awards area. Right. I think a lot of people sort of tend to dismiss them,
right?
With few exceptions, like
the
last Lord of the Rings film, which swept 11 Oscars, and I think by the end of it, like anybody was running against it, because I think they did it as a whole, looking at it as a whole, but anybody who's running against them, sure they were like, I'm up against the Lord of the Rings. All right, well, I guess I'm losing. There's some bitter and some sweet, as often we have in life. So let us remember Kirstie Alley for all her wonderful work.
Yes,
and congratulate the team over at Prodigy for their very prestigious win.
Yeah, I threw on Cheers last night. Actually, watched a little bit of that, so I hadn't seen that in a long time. That's available, I believe, on Peacock. I'm not sure.
Paramount Plus, actually.
Or it might have been Paramount. Yeah, it might have been Paramount.
Yeah. Well, and I have one bit of trivia for Kirstie Alley, which may or may not be accurate. Leo, if you know something to the contrary, please.
All right.
But you remember the TNG episode Cause and Effect, where the Enterprise gets blown up over and over again in the time loop?
Right.
Yes.
At the end, we see Kelsey Grammer playing Captain Bateson. Yeah. And there's a crew member standing behind him. And at one point, that crew member was to be played by Kirstie Alley as Saavik in a non-speaking role.
Oh.
Wow.
Which would have been like a Star Trek and Cheers reunion all in one, which would have been really cool to make that happen.
But it didn't happen. I'm trying to remember.
No, they didn't. She was not on it. They had to. They just got an extra behind them.
Right.
That was the original intent.
I'm trying to think of why I watched it, but I did throw that one on a couple nights ago.
It's a good episode. It actually came out before Groundhog Day. A lot of people call it the Groundhog Day episode of Star Trek, but it came out before.
Yes. Well, there you go.
Innovators all the way.
We dive into this week's episode?
Yes, let's jump right in.
Let's see some of that award-winning production design, which this episode definitely is an example.
It certainly did, because, and I got to be honest and up front at the beginning, when I read the description and I saw it was a Stuck in the Holodeck episode, I went, "Oh no, not one of those." But it was very good, and I did enjoy it. And of course, again, as we always say, stuff that's being produced for kids may not have watched all the countless Stuck in the Holodeck episodes being produced, so this will be new to them. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it. What did you guys think?
I quite enjoyed it. It is. I'm kind of glad we're getting to see them sort of hit those beats, those Star Trek beats, like a Stuck in the Holodeck episode. That is, a classic, TNG, and then into, following then into DS9 and Voyager. They all had their versions of that.
Right.
And I think it's, maybe it's a rite of passage to have one of those episodes. I thought, but I thought they definitely had an interesting twist without giving away the end of the episode.
Right. And so that's what saved it for me, because the ending of it and why it occurred made it work for me, because it was like, okay. How about you, Joe?
I think it was a really great one. As a matter of fact, it's among my favorites of those I've watched with you fellas till this point. It's a good companion episode to last week's Preludes, I think, in terms of some segments and some new characterization, some evolution in that sense.
Yeah.
And I've already seen accounts where people said, well, it seemed like filler. And I really I'm going to start the campaign to minimize or eliminate the use of filler episode as a term, because sometimes you just need a self-contained fun adventure.
Agreed.
It isn't connected to 9 million other things happening at the same time.
Agreed. Well, and I was happy about it because my wife hasn't seen them and my kids have not been watching all along. But I was able to say to them today, hey guys, watch this episode with me because it's a standalone episode and you won't feel lost. And they watched it and they didn't feel lost, which was great. Now, of course, you had that tiny bit at the beginning that was following up on the ongoing plot. But
of course, the ending cliffhanger, not to jump ahead, guys, but of course, there's going to be some connective tissue. But again, just to kind of have a nice standalone story, I think every now and then kind of breaks. I mean, it's certainly, I'll put it this way. As much as we love the show, I think it does a better job of putting in the occasional standalone than Picard season 2 did a lot of the time.
Oh yeah,
right. Yeah, I would agree. And I felt like this was they're doing last week and this week felt very character driven. So you had that scene where they're all sitting around the table eating ice cream because they're trying to figure out a way to contact the Dauntless without infecting it or being destroyed. And they've done it like 87 times, and it's been it's a mess.
Yeah.
So they all go to the mess hall, and they're just eating ice cream.
Yeah, which was great.
It's in it. I'm not sure what that is, but I'm sure it's delicious. And they, and then what's her name? Let me look at my own cheat sheet. Wynn. I'm blanking on her. She, first she's like, what kind of weirdo, whips cream? But then she does it in her mouth the way kids love to do.
Which my kids loved because I yell at them for doing that all the time.
Yeah, sure.
So it was perfect. It was fantastic. Yeah, exactly. Again, playing into, and my wife picked up on it. Gina picked up on it. I don't know if the kids did, but the fact that they're writing them really like kids.
Yeah.
And the only thing I had to explain was, which I had to say, okay, pause it, I'll explain it to you, was why they couldn't go to the Federation. So then I had to tell the story about the weapon on the ship and all that stuff. But other than that, it played fine and everybody enjoyed it. So
I totally agree.
Now, quick point I want to throw in, because I only have a few notes. I'm sure you guys probably have more than I do. But I liked the fact, because we discussed this, I don't know if we discussed it on air or in personal time. They were trying Morse code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things we were saying, hey, they could try Morse code because that's not embedded with anything. And there they were doing it. And I thought that was cool.
Well, and if we believe for a minute that these episodes were filmed the week before they aired,
Right.
And we know that Aaron, one of the producers, checks this out from time to time.
Right.
I said, "Hey, you got that from us?"
Yeah.
If they can animate that fast, then we might be able to take credit.
Yeah. Yeah. Morse code content created by Trek Tonight.
Yeah. Yes. So they quickly discover they're still on the holodeck.
Yes.
That's the thing, is because they were like, we're going to take a break. Let's go, because Janeway actually gives some very good advice. She's like, what is not present right now might present itself on the next day. The idea that just because you can't figure it out now doesn't mean you give up. It means you can, we continue on.
Right.
And there, everybody's like, you know what? Let's get a good night's sleep. I need to just, decompress. And then strange stuff starts happening. You're seeing images like Gwen sees, what turns out to be a Tellarite figure walking in the background. Apparently, Rock Talk has a program which is like Pokemon Hospital, and that's not. It was like,
yeah, I love that.
And then they were like, all right, well, we're still on the holodeck somehow, and they're talking to Janeway.
To me, that was. I mean, it's like any one of those, iPad games designed for kids. Mm-hmm. The idea that she's playing doctor in this like animal hospital. It was just perfect. It was.
I think it tracked for her character, and also, like, why wouldn't they have something like that?
Yeah.
So they start. Mist comes in, and they're in front of a lighthouse, and they also do a little highlights. Yes, they're doing a little exposition on how he's like, well, Zero is way ahead of us. How could that, if the room is as small as we know it was like, Rock Talk lays a little science on everybody, explaining how holodeck works, or at least in theory, because if I had a holodeck, I would never leave it.
I know, me neither. Yeah,
totally concur with that.
Yeah.
So, and the first one is this. It was the Cellar Door Society, which is what Zero likes to play in, which is sort of this mystery, scenario with like clues slid under the door.
What did you think of the joke? The mystery is a feat.
It was a little on the nose, but I think for the intended audience, it is. I think it tracks.
Yeah.
And although both Dal and Jenka Pog are like extremely dismissive of Zero's hobby.
Yeah.
And anybody who's ever been like, hey, you guys want to go see this farm film that about coal workers and in the Ukraine?
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, we want to go see Porky's. It's like, so then
Marvel Fellini.
Yeah, exactly.
Tough choice.
Yeah.
So they realize like, oh, we have to solve the mystery to leave, because they can't summon the arch, and they can't end the program. And
and so the first thing that my wife thought of at that point is, like a locker room or whatever they call those things. Those. What do they call those? You know what I'm talking about. People go, they pay money, and they get stuck in
escape room.
Escape room. That's it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like an escape room, and I'm like, yeah, it's very much like that.
So then they quickly move to a Street Fighter scenario, which is Jacob Pog's program, where he fights a biker gang that all look like Dr. Noom, who was voiced by Jason Alexander, of course.
Right.
And he's down for it. He's like, don't worry, you can't get hurt. There's safety protocols, which as soon as he said it, the safety protocols are not on.
Of course.
And they're not. He loses a tooth. And they beat up a guy, and then they beat these guys up, and there's one guy with a tattoo, and it says Key Club. Then everything goes black and white, and they go to this club. Yeah. And then the biggest twist, I think, of the episode is they're like, well, whose scenario is this? And like there's still Tellarites there and so on. It is Murph's program. Murph, Mr. Murphy No Shoes, uh, uh, is invited up onto the stage to sing and
Yeah.
starts singing, although more likely lip syncing, like sort of a popular standard. He he pulls a fedora off somebody, and he is like the gooey Frank Sinatra.
Right, exactly.
I like to
Old Jello eyes.
I like that.
the old goo eyes.
I like that a lot.
Old Jello eyes.
I think old goo eyes is
Yeah.
the last
There
thing
you
of my
Better.
coup for tomorrow. So stay tuned for that. To get and that was a real trip. And then well, just somebody else could, because I'll just repeat.
Oh yeah. Well, so I mean, they go through these different rooms, basically, if you will. And at some point they're trying to fix the safety protocols, and they're able to communicate with Janeway, Janeway. So Dahl ends up giving his security code,
his command code to
Janeway. And then basically in the end, they find that because they can't figure out, they realize they're not going to be able to get out of this because everything just keeps building on itself. They have a pirate thing they do.
Just an unending labyrinth, really.
Monster version of one of her little cute animals that she takes care of in the hospital program. And then they realize that Janeway's, the hologram, is the one that did it to them unwittingly, that she's been programmed to distract them so that the ship can continue its mission of destruction.
Well, the thing is, because the thing that sets it off is after their umpteenth failure to try to find a scenario where they can negotiate safety for themselves and not destroy the Federation, is Dallas like, yeah, going to the Federation seems like a pipe dream. We should not do that. Everybody's like, yeah, you might be right.
Yeah.
So that sets it off in Janeway, who's become like the Manchurian candidate, unwittingly. What's Raymond doing with his hands? Anyway, cut for those who've seen the movie. And they realize that, and she had no idea, and she's like heartbroken and genuinely aghast that she's done it. But she set a course for the Terran system, and we end with them right in front of the Dauntless, and they're locked out of all control, so they can't even like try to figure out a scenario, go back into the neutral zone or whatever.
Hang on a second, guys. I am so sorry. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Donald Faulkner and Scott Taylor, who both gave us a thumbs up.
Great.
We have loads of comments, and I was stuck in the banners section, and I didn't see that any of these were coming through. So I'm gonna let Craig say happy birthday to Carol. I don't know what poor Keith was talking about there.
Probably the award.
Maybe the award. Yes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, by the way, hi. Yep, he's agreeing with me about the holodeck episode there. He also agrees that the twist at the end made it work. And then Aaron Walkie says, at least Rock isn't eating only Nutri-Goop anymore.
This is true.
Very true.
That's a great point that the only producer could make.
Exactly.
Thank you, Aaron.
I'd say ice cream. He continues to say, I'd say ice cream is probably better than the Nutri-Goop Rock was eating exclusively before. I would think so. And Morse code, great minds think alike.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is a pun worthy of Trek haiku.
Yes,
that was a real hand.
Then Keith also said, it usually bugs me that holodeck safeties are so easily turned off, but the reason for them being off in this episode, this time, worked for me, and that's very true. Again, it's also what made the episode work for me because, there's a reason for it as opposed to just being some strange thing. Pure chaos and mass hysteria.
Yes.
That's the name of the game.
That is the name of the game. I'm not sure what you loved, Aaron, but thank you very much. And again, I apologize, guys. I had my TD thing set on the wrong thing, so I'm very sorry. We missed all of those instantly live, but at any rate.
Well, I'm so relieved because I thought our friends were blowing us
Yeah, I
off
thought it
this
was
week.
unusual that nobody was commenting.
I have, yes, and the problem with it is that I've been so focused on, I got to get out of here at 8:45, that I just wasn't paying attention. Oh, there we go. I'll forgive you, Keith says, this time. Thank you, Keith. I appreciate it. So at any rate, where were we when I interrupted everybody for all of that?
Well, actually, one of the things I found interesting about it, and I think we'll find out more about it next week,
Right.
is this is the first episode in this run, the back half of the season, where we have seen nothing going on the Dauntless. This is exclusively on the Protostar.
Yes.
And I suspect next week we might see. I don't know. I don't know if we'll see exclusively what's going on the Dauntless to the exclusion of what's going on the Protostar. But I think we're going to have some sort of flashback, possibly. Oh, we lost Joe.
Lost Joe. Your mea culpas are accepted and your honesty is appreciated. It is the first duty of every Starfleet officer to tell the truth, after all. Yes,
absolutely.
That is very correct.
Should get Joe back here. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully Joe will pop back in. Joe is continuing to have issues with his internet connectivity out there. Here he comes.
Yeah.
There he is. Got him back.
Yeah, that's what I get for turning off my safety protocols on my Wi-Fi. You know.
Yeah.
There you go. That's it.
But you gotta live on the edge, don't you, Joe? Right?
Sometimes against my better judgment, for sure.
Yes.
My goodness. So yeah. So okay. Did I really didn't, but did anybody have any issues with this episode? Because I really didn't. I thought it ran, except that it was really fast. And I wanted for more because all of a sudden it's like, boom, it's over. And I'm like, oh, shoot.
The pace was incredible. I mean, the pace generally, especially in the back half of the season, the pace has been very good. Like there's a lot of forward momentum. It always feels like they're always, even last week when they were telling stories, it felt like that was a nice break because they've been like really like going boom, 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 like running, trying to figure things out. And, it was a chance for them to do a little character exploration. Yeah. The only thing, and this is a minor thing, and I kind of wish it was maybe more the delivery than the line when Dahl, don't be it, Joe. I think you are a hologram.
That's it.
Yeah. It's Hello, Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Joe. Yeah.
So, is when Dahl said, when he was explaining why he has this pirate program, he says, "I want a crew to respect me." Now, if he said that like a little under his breath, because it felt like, I think the rest of them respect them, but they don't give him like sort of undying loyalty the way a hologram might. Right. And it felt like a little like, it got thrown away because obviously, they start getting attacked by, the world's most adorable Kraken. And, things are going, there's no time to really dig into that, but it kind of felt like, come on, I know the rest of them do respect him and they call him captain and they might, give him a little grief occasionally, but not meanly and not in an insubordinate way.
Right.
So,
well, Aaron says we decided we didn't want to give the audience a heart attack every week, which is why we had a couple of character-driven episodes before the big grand finale.
Oh, no, I'm intrigued.
That makes a lot of sense.
I think it's good. I think pacing wise, having these breaks and going a little bit into the characters in a way that we haven't been able to do before, as they do, like I have anything to do with it, or we haven't seen before, is a solid choice.
Well, and again, like I said earlier, it gave me a chance to bring in a couple of new people to watch the episode with me today that had not been watching it all along, because it was a standalone and you could be enjoyed in and of itself without having to feel like, oh, I've missed a whole bunch of stuff. And the only part I had to explain was why they couldn't go straight to the Federation. So
Right.
I think that was great, and I think it harkens back to the old style of TOS, where that's what it was every week, because they wanted to make sure a person who'd never watched Star Trek could tune in that week and not feel lost. So
And I would say TNT sort of had the same outlook for the most part.
right.
They had a couple of two-parters, and they did some callbacks, but each one was pretty much a self-contained, mystery of the week,
Right.
or event of the week. Whereas in Deep Space Nine, it was pitched at one point, instead of a pirate ship, it would be the RMS Enterprise from Generations, but only Erica was a little more Dal, what Dal would play around with during his free time. I agree.
Yeah.
Dal has a bit of a scoundrel, little soupçon of scoundrel in his character.
Right.
So
but that is a cool callback. I mean, that's a cool idea to do that as a callback.
Yeah, I would love to see that. I think that the pacing of Prodigy, especially in this half of the season, has been perfect. Says Keith. Thank you, Keith. Well, thank you. Again, I had anything to do with it. But I agree wholeheartedly. I think it's moved along very nicely.
Well, I gotta say, when you look at these new offerings from Paramount, and you think that we get together every week to sit down and talk about them, we watch them multiple times, we try to bring whatever knowledge we may have about Star Trek on the whole, you do sort of take a tiny bit of ownership, because we're invested in it. Which
I would agree.
Cool.
I'm sure Aaron agrees too. And
just keep the haikus coming. That's reward enough.
Thank you. Will do.
No, I really have no issues with this. The only thing I can come up with, which I don't even want to call it even a minor issue. At first, I thought, oh, not hologram Janeway. She's not the villain here, quote unquote. But then I realized, you know what? Wasn't her fault. How many times was Data, abused in this way as far as turning against the crew, only to come back and help them out at the end. Right. And I do appreciate the nature of this episode, because at the end of last week, as I recall, we had real Janeway basically knocked on her butt, cliffhanger.
Yeah.
So this is obviously going on concurrently with those events.
Right.
So I think it's a good way to kind of tie it all together for next week.
Yeah. What is our rating for this week, guys?
Is this? I always forget. Are we doing this out of 4?
Out of 5.
Out of 5. I'm going to give this a 4. It was a solid episode.
I agree.
And I think it fits in nicely with the whole storyline. Mm-hmm. It's definitely set up some very exciting stuff to start blossoming next week, and we got a little more character work, which was nice. And I do like the idea that Jake and Pog, repeatedly beats up biker versions of Dr. Noom on this sort of cyberpunk sort of slash side scroller fighting game.
He's fast becoming one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
Jacob might be my favorite character amongst the main crew.
Right. Right.
He gets he has hidden depths, because he sort of sometimes gets played for comedy, but we're getting to see more aspects of him in the idea, and the Doctor and Voyager episode, Darkling, when it goes full Jekyll and Hyde, yes.
Yep.
There is. It's the Manchurian hologram, and I think the fact that it could compromise Janeway means why they can't. 4.5, the extra 0.5 is for an excellent holodeck episode, says Keith.
Good analysis.
Fair enough. I will bump it up to a 4 or 5 then.
Okay. How about you, Joe?
Leo was as easily swayed when facts were presented to him.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what? I'm just gonna go on a limb and say, to me, this is a solid 5. Perfect for me in every way.
Awesome.
A couple of highlights that for me, going back to that section for a moment, I love the monochrome section, of the adventure. Definite hark back to Voyager when we had the Captain Proton stuff going on in their holodeck, and I absolutely love. And I'm sorry I can't give you the cute little guy that has a cute little face who turned into the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man at the end.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That was the highlight for me, just to see him pop up, and again, just brought back Ghostbusters vibes for me at that point.
Yeah, I thought that was great. I thought that was great. That was his bit, and I really, yeah. And it was funny too because he talked about going to the noir black and white, and I think it was my 4-year-old. She's now going to be 4. It's going to be 4 on Saturday.
Another happy birthday.
Yeah, she said, "Ooh, like an old movie."
See?
And I was like, I looked at her and I'm like, yeah, that's true. So where she got that from, I have no idea.
It's also, it really begs the question about Murph. Like, Murph has talk about hidden depths. Murph, originally was sort of like the pet, sort of aware, but not really, but the fact that he not only chose a program which is like this old, sort of noir setting where he gets to go, sing or lip sync at a, at a speakeasy or nightclub.
Right.
But he's doing it. He's not just standing there. He's working the crowd. He's playing with the mic. He's grabbing this Telluride's hat, putting it on his head, and everybody's like, "Come on, give us a song,"
Right.
Like Sinatra walked in, and everybody's, "Come on, Fred, give us a song." He's like, "All right."
Yeah.
So it's like, what is going on with Murph? How intelligent is Murph? Clearly, much smarter than we had given him credit for.
I'm going to go ahead because I'm going to jump in. I was at 4.5 too, but I'm going to go ahead with Joe's and jump in on the 5, and we'll just give it a straight 5.
Yeah,
five salutes for this week. I thought it was very good, very, very entertaining.
Yeah, I'm easily pressured. Murph contains multitudes. Still waters run deep, or goo, as it were. Very well said.
I have to congratulate Leo on improving upon my lame attempt at humor, because I said old Jello eyes, which was fine enough, but of course I'm inadvertently referring back to Data. Old Yellow Eyes is back, so that's where I missed. Old Goo Eyes is much better.
Yes.
Old Goo Eyes.
Right.
Well, goo rhymes with blue, so that's why I chose that alliteration.
That's the writer. That's there's a little bit of Leo's used to writing those haikus, so he's thinking from a poetic standpoint there, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or is it sometimes you come up with the gag at the end and you build up to it. You're like, all right, I know where I want to end. How do I get there? All right.
Right.
Right. So, no. I'm very intrigued now. I'm much more intrigued by Murph than I was. It was fine. Like, he was, he was adorable. Yeah. He was cute. He used to do funny noises and so on.
Right.
But now it's like, what is going on with Murph? I feel like I want to know what his next evolution, because I feel like this isn't the end. I feel like he's going to cocoon up again or grow into something, I don't know.
It's going to be interesting to see where he goes. Keith says, as much as I enjoyed this episode, I'm expecting more from the next few. Well, you mean 2, right?
Yeah.
I need room for episodes that I expect to be even better.
I think we have 3 more.
No, we have 3 left, guys.
We have 3 left.
We have 3.
The last 2 are
17.
I must have looked at it wrong, because I thought we were going into the 2-parter next, but
this was episode 17, and I think, like, my guess, I'm going to give you 2 guesses, 2 predictions, which will probably be entirely wrong. I think the majority of next week's episode are going to be on the Dauntless, and we're going to see what happened there.
Right.
Because I suspect that it is no longer Janeway in command on the Dauntless, although how they could take it over, I don't know. I'm just saying, something's going on the Dauntless, and we'll find out what that is. Murph will eventually evolve into the great bird of the galaxy. Exactly.
How can we not see that coming?
Yeah.
I love it.
And then the rest of all of us will see the koala. And I suspect, this is my guess,
yes,
this is the solution to keeping the Protostar from destroying the Federation and Starfleet is to bring it back into the future through the anomaly that Chakotay went through initially.
Interesting.
That is very intriguing. That's a great theory.
There you go.
I'll expand on Leo's first theory in that I believe next week's episode is going to begin right where we left off last week, meaning that these two ran concurrently. So I think we're going to start next week with Janeway being on the floor after just having been conked, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, you might be right.
It is going to be interesting to me to see, because as I stated last week, one would think the Dauntless would have a crew of at least 300 or 400 people.
Oh, sure.
Because of its size. So it's going to be interesting to see if she does lose command, how that happens.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting. All right, guys. It is 8:41. And my intention was to try to get out of here a few minutes early. Do you have any last remarks in the last 4 minutes that you want to put out there about either this week's episode or anything else?
Leo, I concede to you. I think I've said everything I can, other than I found to be a near perfect episode and thoroughly enjoyable.
Craig Lubin says, I agree with Leo's.
Yeah, go ahead, Leo.
Craig Lubin says, I agree with Leo's futurescape theory. Also, I think that's how the rescue of Chakotay was trapped in the future. Yeah. I can't imagine they're going to leave Chakotay, to die, 50 years. I'm not sure how far. I feel like it's not like a huge amount of time in the future. It might be like 50 years in the future.
Right.
Well, I want to just be inconvenient.
Yeah, I want to know how he got there too.
Well, they said that that the ship went through a temporal anomaly and then came out.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. I must have missed that.
It was not detailed.
Right.
Exactly. Because it was told from the.
Well, it would have to, because it would obviously have to.
That's my guess. Will the episode be
giving you a thank you shake? That's an insult.
Without lawyers getting involved.
Yeah. Oh boy. So then so that confuses me now. So what's next week's episode? Do you know?
I can look it up.
Because I'm missing something, I think.
I think on IMDb, the title of this one was mislabeled as episode 18. That might be part of the confusion.
Maybe. See, I looked it up I got my info from directly from Paramount Plus. So I don't know.
Let's see if I can quickly find this on the interwebs.
Either that or Aaron's panicking right now because it says, wait a minute.
Aaron, because you know what? I have an episode listed for next week as Mindwalk. So I don't know why I'm thinking I didn't. I goofed it up.
And then it's Supernova Parts 1 and 2 on the 22nd and 29th. So
written by Julie
and
Shauna Benson. Cool.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Well, that's a relief, because I was about to say that I hope we haven't panicked poor Aaron saying, oh my God, we only got 19. I got to make one more real quick.
Yeah. Start drawing fast. Yeah. But draw like the wind. All right, guys. So we will be here next week, as always, to review that episode. Check the Facebook page. That's where most of the announcements come out. I'm not sure. We're going to start doing some more regular streaming, especially on Twitch, but I may broadcast it to all three formats, and do some things like I talked about, like talking about Hallmark ornaments or talking about whatever comes to mind. And I have been tracking the Artemis mission and posting that on the Facebook page for those who are interested in it. So that's fun stuff.
A lot of remarkable photos.
What's that?
A lot of remarkable photos being sent back.
Amazing stuff. And also, I wouldn't at all mind getting a few minutes on air watching the Splashdown. I got to try to track that down and see.
When are they scheduled to come back?
I've got to look that up. I'm not 100% on that. Aaron said that this episode they go through an anomaly that turns them all into hand puppets.
I was just thinking.
Can't wait.
Talking about great minds alike. Just like if you had to do an episode really quickly, hand puppets.
The only way to rush out an episode at this stage is in the game. Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, that's hysterical. Anyway, so we will be here next week. I hope everybody has an awesome week. And Aaron, thanks for joining us. Craig, thanks.
Thank you.
Keith, thanks for joining us. So you confuse me with that camera guy thing. I don't have it written there right now. And we will see you all next week.
Absolutely.
All righty. I'm gonna roll us out of here. All right.
Kingman.